Hello and welcome to St Paul's Church in Staverton, Wiltshire, for the next programme in our series 3 in Harmony. And today Simon and I are talking to the legend David Briggs. We're absolutely delighted to have you with us, David. I'm just wondering if you could start by talking a little bit about your early musical experiences. You were born in Bromsgrove in Worcestershire?
I was. All Saints' Day, 1962, All Saints Hospital. What happened?
Good memory.
Do you think? Yeah, I know. And then actually my parents moved to Rubery, which is on the west side of Birmingham, when I was 1, I think. And then we moved to Moseley, which is actually... So my mum, who just passed away 5 weeks ago, but she lived in that house from 1963 until just about a year ago.
Yeah.
So I'm really a Brummie, and actually my family is very musical, and my granddad was for 41 years the organist of St Jude's Church, Hill Street, which sadly was demolished in 1970, but it was very Anglo-Catholic. And some of my earliest memories of sitting on the organ bench with my granddad and just kind of marvelling at the sound, all the stops, all the swell pedals and everything. He was quite a renowned liturgical improviser, as well as running really a pretty good choir. They used to do Beethoven and C, Cherubini, Mass, Gounod, Mass, liturgically, it was... very Anglo-Catholic.
And was that with boys and men?
No, it was mixed choir.
It was a mixed choir,
yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah.
But I do remember when I suppose I must have been 6 or maybe 7, sitting on the bench with my granddad, listening to him improvise. And it really marked me a lot. And I noticed even at that time that his improvisations at the end of the service, the postludes, always ended in D major, G major, or A flat major. And I found out some years later why that was. Those were the only 3 notes of the 16-foot pedal trombone that worked. So he gravitated towards those those notes. And I think my dad used to take me to New Street Station to see the diesel trains in the sermon, because he didn't think a 25-minute sermon would be appropriate for a 6-year-old. And then we always used to come back for the final hymn and hear my granddad improvise. So, and actually that organ still exists. It was when the church was demolished in 1970. There's a school in Dorset called Claysmore. It's near Blandford Forum. Do you know that church? And there was a guy called Nicholas Zelli, who was then the music director, and they brought up the equivalent of a U-Haul truck, and about 30 or 40 schoolboys, and they, pipe by pipe, they dismantled the organ, one day before the bulldozers came in. And it went to Claysmore for about, probably 10, 15 years, and then the school was growing so prolifically that they wanted to use the space in the gallery where the organ pipes were for seating for the school. So they had an electronic. The organ went into storage probably for 20 years, and then about 8 years ago, there's a church in Exeter called St Michael's Mount Dinham. It's an Anglo-Catholic church, glorious mid-19th century church with a lovely acoustic. And they bought the organ from the storage, and they got a local organ builder to install it. And I went to open it.
Oh, wonderful!
Oh, fantastic!
My granddad's organ, and it was very, very moving. The thing I do remember about that concert is that it was all a little bit up against the buffers, you could say. The organ just arrived in the same week as the concert, and I went on the Saturday afternoon to rehearse. The pedal trombone wasn't in yet, and I said, "Oh, it's a shame about the trombone." The organ builder, he said to me, "Oh, don't worry about it. We got it in the back of the van. When are you going to go and have something to eat before the recital?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going to have a pizza or something." "Okay, well, when you come back for the concert, you'll have the trombone."
So were all your pieces in D, G, and A?
I know. No, actually, there were. I think all the notes on the pedal trombone were.
So that influence of your granddad, is that? Do you think that set you on your way as the great improviser that you are today?
I mean, nurture and nature, the kind of symbiotic relationship, isn't it? I mean, my parents also very, very musical. My dad was an engineer by trade, but he was actually a wonderful cellist as well. So, when I was growing up, we used to play the Beethoven sonatas together, Shostakovich cello sonata, Brahms E minor, we did a lot, I remember. He loved music. My parents met in the orchestra in Birmingham in the late 50s. And my mum, although she gave up playing the violin, but astonishingly musical lady, she really was. And one of the last things that she said to me, I said to her that I'd just transcribed Brahms 2. And I played her a little bit of it from St. John the Divine when she was in the care home. And she said, "Oh, that sounds lovely. I'm very glad that you haven't ruined it."
Oh.
Because, and her favourite symphony was Beethoven 7.
Yeah.
So whenever I think of my mum, I think of bum ba little little dum da little little dum da little little dum ba-dee, and the horns.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. So, when I was growing up, I was really encouraged by my parents, never pushed. My dad was a choir boy at St. Philip's Cathedral in Birmingham until he honked away until he was 17. As a lot of kids did in those days.
Absolutely.
But he wasn't terribly happy doing it. I think he really was pressurized by his father to be a chorister. So when I went for my chorister audition with Roy Massey, it would have been 1969, I suppose. My dad was very adamant that if I got in, he only wanted me to do it if I really wanted to.
Sure, yeah.
And again, being a chorister for 3 years, it was just marvellous.
Was that at the cathedral?
At St. Philip's Cathedral.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly my voice trial. And one of the first things that Roy did was played a 6-note chord. And he said, "Yeah, well, so which notes can you hear? Which notes can you hear there?" And I said, "E, F sharp, G sharp, B flat, C natural, and the E flat at the top." He said, "Have you got perfect pitch?" And I said, "I don't know." And I did my voice trial, and before joining that choir, I had no idea about head voice. So, it was like I was driving everywhere in second gear, so to say. I couldn't really sing above about an E flat or an E. And I always remember the sense of euphoria is not too strong a word. Of being, he put me between two very strong top note folks in St. Philip's Cathedral. And within about 2 or 3 weeks, I was like up in the Allegri zone.
Yeah.
And I remember how that made me feel. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
The choir was extraordinary. And I remember we did a broadcast in 1973. I think it's on the archive of recorded church music. Howls in G. I don't quite recall the anthem. And anyway, the introit was Palestrina Exultate Deum. So there were 26 boys, 18 men.
Wow, that's incredible.
The choir was fantastic. Barry Rose produced it.
Yeah.
But I do remember the Palestrina. We didn't like it. We used to call it Exultate Deo. We don't like all this, what do you call it, polyphony. Can't we have the Stamford and the Parrot? But the organ bug, I guess, the virus kind of spread a little bit when I was a choir boy. There was an amazing number 2 at that time, a guy called John Pryor, he was a
great improviser.
Unbelievable improviser. And I owe so much to John. Actually, he lent me, when I was 10 years old, my first LP of Cochereau. He was a great disciple of Dupré, Léonce de Saint-Martin, Cochereau. He really, like me, his heartbeat is kind of centered in Paris. I just used to love his liturgical improvisations. They really excited me as a chorister. And actually, when Roy was away, occasionally on Fridays, he used to allow me to improvise after evensong.
Oh, fantastic!
When I was a choir boy, so he was a real inspiration when I was young.
You obviously learnt the piano from the age of, what, 7 or 8 or something like that?
I guess so. I went through actually 4 different piano teachers before I was 10. And the reason for that is I just prefer to sit at the piano and improvise.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it that I didn't practice my scales or my pieces, So I guess, though, I mean, when I was 11 or 11, I went to an extraordinary lady called Beryl Chempin. She was the best. She was a kind of legend in Birmingham, really. Great technician. Batty as heck, but totally wonderful lady.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. She would, if you learned your Beethoven sonata movement well, we had to memorize everything. If you got through it with good accuracy and everything like this, the reward would be a Cadbury's Dairy Milk king size. And she would present it, So this was nice. And actually, rather amusingly, this tradition went on till I was about 40. So if she'd heard I'd done something, on the BBC or made a good CD or whatever it is, Beryl would post a Cadbury's Dairy Milk through my mum's letterbox.
Brilliant.
Isn't that cool?
It's awesome.
But she got me, I mean, to be truthful, anything that I can do with my hands, I owe to her. Yeah. Because when I started, I had all sorts of referred tension, usual kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we actually went back to ground zero with my technique when I was 14, and went back to, I remember she started me on something called Dozen a Day, one of those little books with stick insects, stick men, I should say. And that took about 3 or 4 months to really kind of rebuild my technique. Because, if you've got not a good core, if the muscles are doing the wrong thing, I think you can only get so far in a way with accuracy and velocity.
Yeah, it's true.
So I owe a colossal amount to Beryl Chempin. And
actually, a good piano technique almost ensures a good organ technique, doesn't it? I mean,
of course. Actually, even now, age 63, my practice, as I've got older, practice has become more of a kind of almost a spiritual exercise for me. You go into your zone, and I just love that zone. It's very private, and I do a lot of practice on, probably 70% of the practice that I do is on, we have a friend in Tribeca down in the south of New York. They have a glorious Model D Steinway, Hamburg Steinway. And I mean, I started going there during COVID, and that really has helped my playing a lot, with this, just the sensitivity of the action and making sure that your fingers are doing the right thing and that there are no surprises, it's not kind of last minute decisions with the fingering. So I think piano technique is absolutely essential for organists. I know that's a little bit of a kind of hot potato, isn't it? Some people think they can get their technique on the organ, but for me, I just love playing the piano. I mean, you can do much more on the piano, really, with line and voicing and, softening inner voices and bringing stuff out just a tiny bit. We have a different form of expression on the organ. The organ can be extremely expressive, in whatever rep I'm playing. I guess my main thing is to make the organ as expressive as possible.
Sure.
Whether it's Bach or whether it's Vierne, or whether it's Reger, or whether it's Howells. Because so often the organ can sound a little bit kind of four-square and not very, but the organ can be deliciously expressive. And, when it's played in a certain way, it's the best instrument.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so much of it is about choosing the right sort of sounds, but also overlapping those sounds so you can create a really seamless effect. Yeah,
I think so. And it's, you mentioned the registration. I mean, that's something I've always loved doing. Ever since I was very little, is trying to make they used to say about John Scott, didn't they, that he could make every organ sound like St. Paul's Cathedral. A bit like that, to try and just kind of, that's why you turn up early for a rehearsal. You go, I mean, in the US, I'd usually turn up a minimum of 2 days before, because, a lot of the organs are pretty sizable. And you go to create a relationship with the instrument.
Yeah.
It can also teach you things.
Yeah, sure.
But actually, you have to be in charge. You're sitting in the left-hand seat, as they would say in aviation. And so you want to make a kind of dichotomy between what you want to say as a musician and what the instrument is giving you back. Sure. So, I like it that we all don't all sound the same. I think that's very important. Yeah. I think looking back on it, ever since I was very young, had a little bit of an inclination towards freedom and being my own person. Sure. And maybe just slightly breaking some rules here and there, hopefully within good taste, although I'm not entirely sure about that. But actually, my great sort of mentor, Khosrow, he used to say about Baroque fingering and Baroque articulation. He said that I think it is very, very important now in the 1970s. That you should know when you're playing Bach, you should know all about the Baroque fingering and the woodwind articulation, the string bowing, you should know all about it. And then when you come to play it in 1970, whatever it is, completely forget it. And he really did that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But I think it's at the end of the day, it's about using your ears really in everything and doing. Just not doing what it says on the can necessarily. Yeah.
That freedom, which I think you have wonderfully when you play. How did you find that when you were at King's? Because at King's, as an organ scholar, obviously there are restrictions there in terms of what you can do in terms of playing. And did you find that you were reined in by, or did you find it a very useful discipline?
Both.
Both, yeah.
I was a pupil of really one of the most wonderful figures that I've ever come across in my life, Richard Popplewell, who I think taught your brother.
And
Tim.
taught me as well.
Did Richard teach you?
Yeah.
Richard was amazing. So my dad died when I was 16. He was 55. And Richard really took over as my surrogate dad. He was so kind to me. And I used to go for lessons. First of all, at
St Michael's.
St Michael's, absolutely, St Michael's, Cornhill, where the organ is very sharp, and it really did my head in. But anyway, but we used to, every lesson was like about half an hour at the beginning was kind of chat in the vestry, and Richard would say, "Oh, we'd like some coffee, really." And I said, no, thanks, Richard. It's like in this kind of congealed flask. Do you remember that? Yeah. And we used to talk about everything under the sun, stuff that you wouldn't be allowed to talk about now. But he was so kind, and he really supported me. And I remember doing FRCO with him, and he used to get me to practice the Bach with a metronome, like all the time. Really, he used to come out with marvelous lines of, "Oh, if you can't play in time, you're no bloody use to anybody." Things like this. But you were asking about King's. So even in those days, in 1982, 1981, 2, 3, we had a little black and white camera, and you had to be not ahead of the beat and not behind the beat.
Was this with Philip Ledger?
With 1 year with Philip.
Right.
And I was young, I was 18. I was pretty terrified.
Yeah,
I tell you. I used to sometimes stay in there till 1 o'clock in the morning practicing, just because, there's a kind of expectation if you go there. You're really aware of who's been there before.
Yeah.
Thomas, Simon Preston, Francis Greer, James Lancelot, all these great, great people, and there are many others. My predecessor, John Butt, one of the greatest Bach scholars in the world now. Richard Farnes, the great conductor, was after me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, it had to be right. And actually looking back on it, this was a great training, because the aesthetic was that you deliver the goods no matter how you're feeling. Even if you've got an essay crisis, if you've had a bust up with your girlfriend, if you're hungover, if you've got food poisoning, if you've got flu or whatever it is, just delivering the goods. And that's kind of sets you up for life, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really does.
But did you suffer, were you confident about that? Did you suffer from nerves?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it must have been terrifying. I mean, I didn't know Philip Ledger, but I've heard lots of stories about him being quite a tyrant at times and giving people a tough time for the right reasons. But you know, I mean, it must have been quite terrifying going in there.
He was.
Got to do Insani Vinacuri or something, and
he was very, very demanding. So was Stephen, in a completely different, very understated, but no less powerful way.
Yeah.
You know, but there are various ways of dealing with it. I mean, I think times are different now. I really admired, actually, some very good friends, Stephen Layton, who've done a lot of work together over the last 20 years with Trinity, but he was 2 after me at King's. And I love the way that he treated his organ scholars, because everything was filmed. Now, if the organ scholars were conducting evensong, they would then get together on the Monday morning and analyse what they did and say, well, what did you do that for, or why didn't you do this?
Really?
And I think that's the better way. For me, you get much better results, more long-lasting, less damaging, if the whole thing is saturated in love.
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Did you get feedback from the directors of music? I mean, I appreciate that you were playing every day and it was a busy time, but did you get the chance for whoever your boss was to say to you, actually, David, you did that really well, but maybe at that point you could have done X or Y? Or was it just you were the organ scholar and it just rolled on the whole time?
A bit of both. There was some feedback, definitely, of course, But I mean, just playing for that choir, you know.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's amazing at the moment. I mean,
my
goodness
me,
I'm not sure it's ever been much better than this, really.
Yeah, it is wonderful. Yeah.
So, you know, it was very demanding. And then in my last year at King's, I got a scholarship to go see Jean Langlais for improvisation, but also a lot of rep. And I always recall my first lesson at St. Clotilde with Jean Langlais. I took Franck A major fantasy. So I'd been at King's for 3 years. I played. Bang on in tempo. And get to the end of the first line, the first page, rather. Jean Langlais leant forward and said, Oh mais non, c'est pas ça. Ce n'est pas tika, mais non. Oh, non, c'est pas ça, pas du tout. Il faut jouer tita, 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 tita. Oui, c'est la fluidité. And this was, you know, I was 20 years old. And it was like the heavens opened.
Yeah.
Because it was like being given permission,
license
to be free.
Yeah.
But it was on his terms. And he would, like, with the finger here, and he'd be singing, you know, he'd be doing but completely off pitch. And you just, if you deviated, it was on his terms. But like with any great teacher, and he was a truly great teacher, he was such a marvelous spirit. I used to come out of those lessons feeling 7 feet high.
Wow.
Almost as high as Dan Hyde, actually. You can edit that out, but or not. He was so inspirational. You know, I had 12 lessons with him. And for improv as well, I mean, it's interesting. 'Cause I work a lot with young organists on improvising now. And I love doing it. Just... it's sometimes baby steps, sometimes big steps, you know, it just depends. Sure. But I do a lot of the things that I did with Langlais about Gregorian chant modality, extended tonality. You know, we talk a lot about, of course, you know, his teacher, Ducat and Tournemire and people like this. So Langlais was very formative, I would say, in my evolution as an improviser, but also in repertoire. I did a lot of his own music with him, a lot of Vienne, a lot of Franck. And he used to say about Franck that this is really kind of it's old people's music, and actually it is about life experience, you know. Because I think perhaps more than with any composer, the success of the music is really dependent on the human heart of the performer, and the performer being able to convey that. And if the emotion is there, then you bring people in, you know, and he really encouraged that perspective.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
What a teacher.
We must wrap it up for this program, but there's going to be more opportunities in the next program. So thank you, David.
My pleasure.
Indeed.
We look forward to talking with you further.
My pleasure. Thank you.